Hello, welcome to another episode of Executive Suite. I'm your host, Thomas Braun. And today I have with me Connor O'Hearn from My Services Group and MA Advisory Group. And Connor is one of the founders of the company. And Connor, can you please give us a brief summary of your firm, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So MAAI, pronounced my services group, we work with primarily venture capital and private equity firms, and then also some of their portfolio companies to help them figure out how to cut through the noise and implement AI. So building an AI strategy, helping implement tools, building custom workflows, and then helping upskill their teams.
Okay, well, that's very interesting because AI is, of course, a trending topic. Everybody wants to know what to do with it. And in M&A, some people are using it a little bit and other people are not using it at all. So let's dive into that. Uh, Tell us, how are you using AI for mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, so I think there's two main sides to this. One is through the work with venture capital firms and private equity firms where we're helping them essentially think through the processes that they're going through on a regular basis, whether it's managing LP relationships, sourcing new deals, doing conducting diligence on those deals. All of that is done in a lot of different conversations using a lot of different data points. And what we help to do is go through that process with a firm and essentially bring all of those components together in what we call as a company brain. And so it's taking those meeting transcripts and, if there's particular information that they want to get on a prospective portfolio company, how do we, utilize different APIs or utilize different databases and bring all of that data together and then utilize the power of AI to be able to, comb through that transcript, enrich it, surface insights, before they might think of it. So it's sort of this interesting uh interesting work area where it's a mixture traditionally of intuition and then also a lot of data. And we're trying to merge the two to make it easier for somebody to actually go and have those conversations and manage a relationship and spend less time putting notes into their CRM, for example. And then the other side of it is with portfolio companies or lower middle market businesses. Traditionally private equity has done a lot of financial engineering, but AI does some really interesting things where you could look at a lower middle market manufacturing company that spends a lot of time quoting, for instance, quoting customers on build it, putting together and that quoting process now can be automated to a large degree, and you can save a lot of time. And just by there's an interesting company called Paperless Parts that they had a good case study where they did that, and they saw a quoting process that was, a week or around a week on average down to sub 24 hours, which then you're getting the quotes out faster, you're more competitive. Um, you're increasing the velocity. So they were getting 25% more quotes out. And then as a result, their sales volume actually increased by, I think it was 10%. So just by touching the quoting process. So then you can imagine what does that do to margin? Because you're saving money on all those hours that you were spending before. And then what does it do on, if you lift margin by say a percent and that increases enterprise value by 1.2 million bucks in that particular case, then how does that compound over time? And I think the interesting thing with private equity and especially in lower middle market is that the efficiencies that we can get from implementing AI tooling, whether it's existing tooling that is being built out there or building some sort of custom workflow or custom company brain, that makes industries that in the past private equity firms would not have touched now a lot more attractive because the margins are improving, the businesses are becoming more efficient, the people inside of them are becoming upskilled. So all of that makes for an increase in enterprise value and a more attractive company and more attractive industry to go get involved in.
Okay. So, what about this partnership with V7? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So as we were initially forming this business, um, one of the main problems that we saw with anybody trying to implement AI or go make sense of AI was that there are over 12,000 tools out there. So, and that's across all kinds of different categories. But just as an example, in legal tech alone, there's like 600 different tools. So, for the people that then are thinking about going and implementing one of these tools, you're starting off with a very complex, confusing marketplace. Everybody's saying a very similar thing. And so, what we wanted to do was go and identify these tools, dig into them, see where they could be useful and where they can be applied. And as a result, we ended up forming a handful of partnerships and are continuing to form partnerships with new companies. And yeah, with V7, they're a company out of London. Really interesting, really intelligent uh, company. They've got, I think, well over 100 people now working for them, and they just established a presence in the United States. But the one use case with them that we're focused on is for private equity firms for one pager creation. So, you can think of uh, that can apply more broadly to, putting together a SIM, confidential information memorandum, putting together a teaser or a one pager. But that's traditionally a process that, a managing director might send to an associate a list of 20 companies and say, "Hey, Monday morning we're going to talk about these in a investment committee meeting, or um, we need to have information. We need to have one pagers put together for all these companies." And so what that leads to is that associate or analyst then goes and spends 30 minutes on each one of those from the list. Now what we're doing is saying, okay, well, that's a pretty repetitive process and a mundane, kind of monotonous. How do you automate that? So how do you go from that list of 20 to now automatically we know the format, we know the data that you want to be able to put into it, and it turns into more of a checking exercise, human in loop, being able to verify, yep, okay, this is correct, looks good. And it takes that 30-minute process down to maybe a few minutes per,
Hmm.
which just saves a tremendous amount of time. So that's what we're doing with V7.
Hmm. So, but you have to have the name of the company to start with. It's not searching for companies. You can't say, "Here's my criteria. Give me a list of all the companies that meet my investment criteria."
Well, so I think the interesting thing is there are a bunch of tools out there, a bunch of new tools every week. And that's an example where we might have that conversation with a private equity firm where they say, "I want you to help me with buyers list generation." So I have this company. I need to understand who are the potential buyers out there, and that is sourcing names and sourcing
Hmm.
information on whether it's publicly available family offices or um, you know various places to go gather up the data. But that would be a problem that we could then say, okay, what does the process look like? Where do you go right now to be able to source that information? And how can we rethink that process and utilize either off the shelf tools or build something, a custom solution to be able to make that a reality?
Hmm. One of the guests that I had was on. Well, he was founder of a venture fund, actually, and so he said they're using AI, AI, mean to look for deals on TikTok,
Oh, wow.
actually. Yeah. So it turns out TikTok is a major platform for founders, actually. And so they were looking at metrics like how many followers does this person have? What kind of engagement do they have? Have you ever come across anything like that or thought about doing that?
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I've thought about it sort of with LinkedIn in mind because I think a lot of people, and I'd imagine the people that have a pretty good TikTok following, if they spent some time on LinkedIn, they'd probably have a decent following there as well. I think it depends on who your end customer is of whatever service you're providing. Like for me, I don't know if it would be all that useful for me to go viral and have a famous TikTok trying to sell to private equity firms. But maybe, maybe I should build a marketing agent to be able to go do that. But yeah, I think with any of this right now, what makes sense is breaking down whatever you do. So if it's that founder, for instance, on TikTok, I'd imagine that they're trying to speak to specific pain points and give really narrow use cases and examples for whatever it is their product, uh, whatever there is their product solves. Um, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's how we're trying to build our marketing, and build our sort of pipeline of deals is go and speak to that one pager generation or a buyer's list or a legal due diligence problem or any of these specific things that somebody might identify with and say, oh yeah, I spend a ton of my time doing that. How can these people help me?
Hmm. And so you've got this partnership with V7. Do you have any other partnerships?
Yes, we have another partnership with a company called Emma Legal. They're a legal due diligence platform. So think about putting in your document request list, uh, s- uh, essentially logging in and creating a integration between your data room and Emma Legal. So then that information request list is automatically sorted, and then it goes through each one of those documents for over 150 different clauses and questions and puts together a red flag analysis on a whole data room in a matter of minutes. So it's a tremendous starting point for M&A attorneys, private equity firms, even family offices that just want a quick glimpse into what does the due diligence look like on a potential investment. And at the very least, it's a phenomenal starting point too. So it just gets people going instead of having to go through the process of sorting through, organizing that data room, checking to see what you're missing from the information request list. All of that is done automatically. So each one of those things is like a really unique, nice little pain point that they solve for. With the V7 partnership with Emma Legal, and we have a handful of other sort of solopreneurs that have built different tools that fit into the broader finance and legal workflows. What we're trying to do with them is one, help with distribution because it is a crowded and noisy marketplace, um, but also have a place where if you're a uh, operating partner at a private equity firm, we want you to be able to come to us to see, what are all the tools that are out there right now, and how are they categorized? How does my services think about them? Um, and can they help me implement? Because that's the other step. There are a whole bunch of tools, and right now, I think user interface and user experience is really important. So the ease of use, especially if you're thinking about somebody who's not technical, that can be a big hurdle and really hurt adoption of a tool. So if we can help make that easier, that's what we're trying to do with those partnerships.
Hmm. So w- what's the best data room to use? We're talking about sort of like a cloud-based thing like Google Drive.
Um, yes, but usually these firms are using DataSite and Serata. There's a handful of different data room sort of infrastructure partners, I guess, if you
Hmm.
will. Um, I don't necessarily have a go to on that. I think what matters with a lot of these tools is that um, you want to pick tools that are flexible. So pick tools that can integrate in a lot of different places, integrate with a lot of different CRMs, with data rooms, um, have the opportunity to integrate different APIs, um, be able to ideally get your data out of it as well and put it into your own database. All of that just increases your flexibility. So if
Mm.
you are trying out a certain platform or tool and it doesn't work out for 6 months, you still want to be able to take that data elsewhere or build your own system on top of it. And I think that's what I would look for, and that's what I would say is like the number one criteria if you're looking to if that's your first step and you're looking at any of these tools.
Okay. So I thought with data room, one of the ideas behind it was that it could be set up so that the person who's going into the data room can't copy anything. Is that your
Yeah,
experience?
I think the idea is that it's secure. Um, the idea is that you can continuously add to it as well. Um, but as far as data room, we don't really do too much work with the actual setup of the data room. That's that's much more the firm's preference on what they use, like OneDrive or Ansarada or data site, like I said.
Yeah, because the whole point um, is that you want to keep your information confidential. So you get the other side to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Then they can have access to the data room, which used to actually be a room with a binder in it, and you could go sit in the binder and look at stuff and take notes, but you can't copy things because people don't want their data just sort of floating all over the place, um, getting into the hands of competitors or whoever, right?
Yeah.
So I was just curious about the Emma software, how that would work with that, and the security features of data rooms. Would they have to turn that off? So do you have to drop each document into Emma, or it just integrates somehow and looks at the
Yeah.
entire file? Like,
Yeah, it looks at the whole file. It
it doesn't matter
integrates
if
with
it's
the
an
data rooms.
Excel spreadsheet or a Word document,
No, it integrates
PDF.
with the data rooms. Yeah. So they've gone out and built partnerships so that
I
they
see.
can do that. They can plug in with those data room providers. Because yeah, to your point, that it it wouldn't be the most secure if all you could do is just download PDFs and then upload them to Emma. So the idea is you don't want to change the way that people are working. The workflow is right now that they're putting them into a file
Hmm.
inside of one of those data rooms. So
Right.
that's where
Right.
they want to
S-
meet them.
So I just wonder though if that's kind of like making a copy or something. I don't know. Um, anyway, uh, I'll take a closer look at the website, try and get some more details on that. Now, how do you go about making partnerships? Because not just in the your space M&A, but it seems like most of the people who are scaling really quickly and growing their business are doing it through partnerships of various different kinds. Is there a method that people can follow that works the best in forming partnerships, or is it just like
Yeah.
depends on the your individual personality or what?
Yeah. I'd say if anybody has a better method, feel free to reach out. But so far, I think what works well for us is by forming some of those partnerships, we then have access to those teams. So, for instance, any of these questions that you've asked about Emma,
Hmm.
um, because I have a partnership there, I can turn around and fire off an email to the CTO or CEO of Emma and get a response back very quickly. Um, and the other side of that too is if we have feedback, which we often do from private equity firms, for instance, that are uh, implementing or testing out V7, and they say, "Hey, it'd be great if this feature could be in there. That would really help us." If we didn't have those partnerships, it would make it really difficult for us to go and get that feedback back to V7. Whereas, we can just put it in our Slack channel with the engineers at V7. So by having those partnerships, I think it gives us the ability to answer a lot more questions and increase our speed to customer satisfaction by being able to have those technical teams at our fingertips. Um, the other side of that too is when we say partnerships, we are not trying to profit off of these partnerships. What we're trying to do merely is be a two-way street. So one, we're helping with distribution for these companies. So we're looking to go partner with all kinds of companies like Emma and V7 and others that we're talking to. to help get them in front of customers. Like I said too, it gives us sort of a technical bench where we can go and discuss problems and solve problems and improve those tools. And then it also, gives us a position where we can be sort of a preferred partner. Anything where, for example, with V7, if they need if we have a client that needs some sort of custom user interface, we can go build that user interface for them. But if the solution is already something that V7 has solved, then we don't need to go and reinvent the wheel or build something new. We can just work with V7 to go and actually put together the technical side of it and the infrastructure on the back end that we can serve up in the user interface. So those kind of partnerships just give us a lot of flexibility. Um, and it also helps, as I mentioned, with distribution. So all of these different markets, all of these different niches are getting more and more crowded and noisy. And so the more that we can speak to specific pain points and specific problems and then go and actually show a demo and show, how something works, the better. And the more customers that we get um, to actually come and work with us. So that also, gives us the ability to go demo Emma Legal to prospective customers or demo a V7 product or any of the other ones that we're building partnerships with, which helps everybody at the end of the day. So it's hard to find them in some ways, but I think it's getting easier and easier because we've actually received a ton of inbound as well, where they see on our website our partnership with V7 and with Emma, and now they're reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, this is interesting. Looks like you're talking to, one
Mhm.
of our ICP customers. How do we build a partnership? How can we work together?"
Nice. So I take it you are mostly on the buy side, right?
Um,
That's what
yes,
it sounds like.
yes, yeah, I would say that. I'd say
Okay.
we're starting to have some more of the conversations on the sell side, but mostly on buy side and mostly on the investor side.
Okay. So with the sell side M&A advisors, and we're talking about the M&A advisors who are involved in the transaction, the buyers and sellers. Um, Now with the sellers, I heard that their fees can be as high as like 20%. Does that sound right?
Maybe in some cases.
hmm And so how do the okay, so I understand that part. You hire an M&A advisor, they're going to charge you anywhere between 10 and 20% maybe. Apparently it's still well worth it because you'll still make more money. You'll still get more money for your company than if you try and go it alone. But with the sell side, we get that. With the buyer side, how do they get compensated?
Well, they are taking an equity position in the business, so they're betting that they're going to be able to make the
No,
business
well,
more
the
valuable.
advisor. I'm talking about the advisors. How do the M&A advisors get compensated? Do they also get a percentage of
I'm
the
I'm not sure
value or
actually
what?
how an M&A advisor on the buy side gets compensated. I'm sure that's
Mhm,
part of the deal. I'm sure it's a commission style, just like on sell side. But
mhm.
have you spoken to any of them lately?
Actually, I haven't asked the question. I've interviewed a couple, but I haven't asked the question because it only just occurred to me now. Um, so what exactly are you doing on the buy side? You're not actually advising on the transaction itself. You're just doing general consulting for the funds.
Yes, correct. So for the firm themselves, so their internal processes.
I get
So
it. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So
helping
you're
them
focused.
optimize all their meeting notes,
Oh,
their
okay.
internal CRM, all the data that goes into how they make a decision.
Yeah, good customers to have because those are the ones who have the money, so they can afford to pay you.
Well, and they're
So,
spending a lot of money
yeah.
already on tools.
Mhm.
You look
Mhm.
at PitchBook. PitchBook is $30,000 a year. Um,
More. I
yeah,
think it's
or more.
35,000, yeah.
Okay, there you go. And so, yeah, that
For
right
one,
there.
that's for like one user, I think, too.
So, yeah, so it's, the tools need to be good. If we can help bring those tools together, like I said, in some sort of company brain, or
Hmm.
give them tools that make them more efficient, then they're gonna be happy. But right now, the big disconnect is there's so much out there, it's hard to navigate. How do I even approach a strategy? And
Hmm.
that's why we started the business.
Yeah, there sure is a lot of information out there, and so now I'm just wondering though, when you're advising them on internal processes and things like V7 and Emma, um, are there things that sellers like? Have you gained any insight that if I'm trying to sell my business, um, how is that going to affect me, and what can I do to make my business look better or to get on their radar?
Yeah, I think, what we've seen right now is, and it's starting, is a trend to be able to implement, like I mentioned, that quoting example where they were able to implement that AI tool to make their
Mhm,
quoting process more efficient.
mhm,
That makes their company more attractive to a buyer.
mhm,
And so, as a seller, how are you utilizing the tooling that is available now, to make your business more efficient, to make
mhm,
it more profitable? So I think those are the things that, you know, for when we partner with a M&A advisor that is helping sell people's companies, that's what we're having conversations about. Is, in these companies, where can we find these efficiencies that are going to make that a much more attractive company to go sell?
mhm,
And then how do you speak to that as well? Because you can say that, oh yeah, we make the quoting process this much more efficient by automating this, this, and this. But at the end of the day, okay, what does that do? Hey, it increases sales by 10%. It, saves a ton of time. So now our customer service folks who wear 5 different hats are not spread thin answering and putting together quotes, or, just as that example, but now are actually going and having more conversations with customers and helping them solve other problems that are a little more nuanced. And
mhm,
that right there is a ton of value and a ton of time back to those companies, which now maybe they can go, make that much more money, make that bigger margin, and then increase their enterprise value in 12 to 18 months. And they're a more attractive company for it.
mhm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that we're getting close to the half hour mark, so we should probably think about wrapping this up. Did you have any closing remarks that you wanted to make before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I'd say right now, a lot of markets, and when I say markets, it's the different industries, whether it's specialty manufacturing, fisheries industry, any one of the niche industries inside the lower middle market. Um, there is pretty much a universal goal to implement AI somehow.
Mhm,
Only about between 1 and 5% of those companies actually have some sort of AI tool or workflow in production, in process in those companies. So, what's called AI maturity is pretty low for those industries. So, what I think is important to recognize, if you're a private equity operating partner with portfolio companies in those industries, if you're a buyer or a seller, if you're a, chief operating officer inside a lower middle market company, you're probably having conversations about AI, but it's really important to think about, what are you going to do, and what are the biggest companies in your industry doing, and what kind of investments are they making, and how are you going to respond to that? Because inevitably, there is going to be a bifurcation in these industries, where there are going to be the companies that made the investment and saved the time, increased their margin, were able to reallocate people's time to go do higher touch, more nuanced things inside those businesses. And then there are going to be the ones that still have a 3-week quoting process that are getting disrupted. And so we're still really early, but I think the urgency is there in a lot of people, but there are some people who are sitting back and just trying to see where this goes. And I would just encourage those folks, come up with a plan. Work with us, work with a company like us, um, and start getting smart on how to make these changes inside your business that you're actually going to see ROI on, and upskill your people too, because it's not just the processes, it's the people as well.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to be a really important thing where everybody says, oh my gosh, you're going to lose your job to AI. I actually think if we do this right, all of these different roles can be enhanced, and the job function of some of these people, especially in these companies where they're wearing a ton of different hats, like I said, they can now actually spend time doing things that are more enjoyable, that actually move the needle. So that's what I would say. And yeah, come find us. It's my-services.com, MAAI-services. And yeah, happy to have more conversations like this. And hopefully we can help all these businesses grow and find success.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us. If
Yeah,
you
thank
like
you very
this,
much for having me.
I was, it was my pleasure. And I was just going to say to our viewers, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And bye for now. Until we see you next time. Take care.
Thanks very much.